welcome to Doubles and Trebles. We're here to cover everything Q School with 29 players now with a PDC Tour Card following the last few days of drama and quarantines, preliminary stages, withdrawals, controversies, plenty of Danny Baggish. But first things first, we've had to have Ozzy Smith back on again because he's been on twice. He's put up 2 winners, this time 7-2 on Mr. Goldfinger to win a tour card, Andrew Gilding. And we've got him back there. You might notice a couple of things on screen. Firstly, I've got a daft haircut, as you may see, but that's just part of lockdown fun. But Ozzy, a bit more serious, fell off his bike last Saturday, which you may notice, but he's soldiering through and he's still coming to appear on Doubles and Trebles with his friends Matt Pineman Hill and Adam Smith. How are you doing, boys?
I'm well. I'll let Ozzy talk about his bike crash first. I think before we go any further, there'll be a lot of intrigued viewers.
Yeah, so it happened last Saturday. Not ideal whatsoever. Going down a hill, roads were clear until I hit a patch of black ice, and the results are evident for themselves. I've got eyes like a panda. Fortunately, no broken cuts and bruises, but yeah, safe to say that last weekend was a painful one. But I'm back, and Andrew Gilding, who we can talk about in more detail later, certainly made my week, achieving the tip and getting himself a tour card, which was great news.
Very good. So yeah, like I say, there's 29 players achieved a PDC tour card over the few days, and yeah, we're rearing and ready to go in the pro circuit for the 2021 and 22 seasons. There was 12 from Europe that Pineman's going to talk us through. There was 17 from the UK, which Ozzy's going to touch on most of them. Names that plenty of you would recognise, including Raymond van Barneveld, friend of the channel Danny Baggish, and then there'll be some that are new to everyone, including the hardcore darts fans like us. So, yeah, we've congratulated Danny Baggish. I mean, what can you say? He probably was the story of the event, really. Yeah, he had to get through 2 stages. He had 3 attempts at both. Left it till the final attempt on both occasions, and on the final day of the tournament, the only way he could get a pro tour card was to win 6 games, and he won 6 games. I mean, he said he works well under pressure, but Jesus Christ, that was leaving it a bit extreme there, Danny. So we'll hope to have Danny on again in a few weeks' time, hopefully. And just while we're at it, before we go into the Q School detail, we can confirm our next guest is booked for next week. It's Gordon Mathers, who won himself a tour card last week. So one of the 29. So we'll be having Gordon on next week. And if you've got any questions or issues that we should raise with Mr. Mathers, then let us know and drop us a comment below or a tweet. But first things first, Pineman, Europe, let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, cheers, Adam. It's been a cracking few days. Well, what is it? I think it's 9 days in total. Started, well, over a weekend, and then it ran all the way through that week into the next weekend, didn't it? And then, yeah, Danny Baggish leaving it late for that drama on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we were all refreshing Darts Connect, trying to follow it all. But yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and obviously I'm going to touch on Europe. So we had 4 automatic winners, and yeah, much like the UK, there's a preliminary qualifying stage, couple of preliminaries that players had to get through. In Europe, that was a lot easier to get through because there was less of a field to whittle down almost. So you just kind of had to, it kind of separated the wheat from the chaff. You know, if you could win a couple of games in the preliminary stage, that was you through to the main stage. And obvious names that were in this field, people were looking at Raymond van Barneveld, but there was a couple of names that people were putting up that weren't so fortunate and didn't get through. But we'll start with the men that did get through automatically. We had Gate DeVos, Gate Ninjas, Florian Hempel and Boris Koltsov all going through automatically by winning their day event. Good to see Boris Koltsov get through, and we're going to have a Russian tour card holder. So that you know, always nice to see the game growing in new areas and new countries. I know we've seen the likes of Oreshkin and a few other players coming from Russia and to the Worlds, but it'd be nice to have a regular on the scene. Gate DeVos is probably the one that stands out from there for me. He was in the Grand Slam of Darts he was a successful BDO player 5 or 6 years ago, and you may remember seeing him in the Grand Slam of Darts where he actually faced a young Johnny Clayton and absolutely thumped him 5-0, averaging about 115 plus. He was going into the last leg with a chance of breaking the world record average. That's how well he played there. So he's obviously got game. You know, for whatever reason, he hasn't managed to make that jump over to the PDC, but rocked up day one of the final stage and won the thing. So I mean, no messing around. I think he won 12 of his 13 games at Q School or something ridiculous. So, I mean, definitely a man to keep an eye on this year. Aside from the automatic qualifiers, the obvious guy was Raymond van Barneveld. He made a bit of a hard job of it, to be honest, Barney. He took all 3 days to get through the preliminaries. And then he didn't win any of the 4 days. But let's be honest, there was some quality performances in there from him. He was regularly averaging high 90s and over a ton a couple of times. He had a fantastic game with Martin Schindler, where Martin Schindler actually hit a 9-darter. But yeah, I mean, Barney come through on the Order of Merit very comfortably in the end, as did Martin Schindler. He topped the Order of Merit in the end, and it was great to see him playing so well. I mean, this is a guy who you wonder how he dropped off the tour, really, the quality that he's got. And he averaged, much like Barney, several 100+ averages across the event. He's just a class act. And
Schindler's got talent. Schindler's got
as I said, 9-darter. You know, I mean, it wasn't surprising to read that he did a 9-darter. This boy's got bags of quality. Maybe nerves have got the better of him in his younger days, but he'll be a steadier player and probably better for this experience. I think a lot of these guys will come on for this experience because the pressure is so high at this event. You know, as the days start to tick by, you know, the pressure just ramps up and up and up, and some players rise to it and some players don't, unfortunately. Other notable names from Europe that you'll recognise getting through: Neil Zonneveld's got his card back. Zoran Lerchbacher, the Austrian, he's also got his card back. Adam Gawlas is the one I'm looking forward to, the young Czech player. He really impressed at the World Cup. We've seen a little bit of it on telly. Very young lad, got a very good rounded game, and he managed to get through. So looking forward to seeing if he could do some damage. Mickey Unterbuchner, a name that people will remember. He got to the BDO semi-finals as a 100-1 outsider a couple of years ago. Which,
he was a gamble. I backed him that year, you know. Win only.
Yeah, we were on. He was as you say, he was gambled in from about 500s into 100 because people realised he had a little bit more quality than your average BDO qualifier. And he nearly got the job done, to be fair. But he's got his card. John Michael, the big Greek man that you'll have seen at the World Cup. It's a really good lineup. There were some names that missed out, as I touched on. None more so than Nico Kurz. I think a lot of people expected him to get his card. He didn't get there. He was one of those where, first couple of days he bumped into some good performances, and then I don't know if the pressure got to him or whatever, but it is a brutal format. You've got to forgive these guys for sometimes not getting over the line because there's so few places for so many quality players, and it didn't happen for Nico, unfortunately. I'm sure he'll come again. He's young enough and good enough. Roby John Rodriguez, he's dropped off now, and he's been on a bit of a slide for a little while now. Will we see him back? I would like to hope so. He was a bit unlucky, only just missed out. Matt Campbell couldn't get over the line again. A lot of promise for him after the Worlds. And Christian Kist as well, someone who I know Oz put up, and he played very well, to be honest, Christian Kist. I mean, there was one day in particular where it looked like he was potentially going to go all the way. And then, as I said, it just takes one bad game and then all that good work is undone. Just before we move on from Europe, just want to give you a couple of names to watch for next year, a couple that took my eye. Well, 3 actually. I've got Lorenzo Pronk from the Netherlands. He flew through the preliminaries and only just missed out on a card. Dutchman, it definitely one to watch going forward. We know what a hotbed of talent the Netherlands is in terms of dart. Ricardo Pietreczko from Germany was a name I was not familiar with before this thing, but in his preliminaries, he was regularly averaging the best out of everyone in the field, and I'm talking like a quality field as well. And then, a little bit unlucky again in the main event, so I'll be very much keeping an eye on him next year. I'm hoping he's going to go in at a biggish price. And Leonard Gates, Danny Baggish told us, another American to keep an eye on over in Europe. He got through the preliminaries with a good performance on the last day. Much like Danny, he had to win all his games to get through, and he did. But unfortunately, couldn't quite get over the line in the final stage. But I'm sure Leonard will come again. Thoroughly enjoyed the event, and plenty of good names to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, Schindler for me must have been the highlight from the European. I know he was an obvious one, top the order of merit, but like you say, Pine Man, he has had the experience. He has had some experience on TV, World Cup teams as well, I think, possibly. So hopefully he can kick on now because he's got definite talent. Onto the UK side of things, Oz. What was the story there?
Yes, more cards available simply because more players entered that side of the tournament, and again, full of quality that all went through. 4 winners of the cards: Kirk Shepherd, former World Championship finalist, I think it was, where he got beat off John Part. Jason Heaver, Jake Jones, who was a Stokey and was a big hit as a youth player coming through, beat some good players, won some good tournaments and just fell away. And former BDO star Scott Mitchell, who ended up qualifying on the last day anyway through his run, but went on to win the whole thing in a very impressive display. Notable names going through the order of merit: Jack Main, who I don't think played on the last day because he simply had enough points, so he relaxed and put his feet up. Goldfinger, Andrew Gilding, who was impressive throughout. I think he averaged 94 for the tournament. That was my tip, just to reiterate that, 7-2. So
well done.
A couple of others as well. Gordon Mathers, the Australian, who I think first came to probably prominence in the World Championships, where I think he just struggled with nerves, but clearly showed his quality throughout. And as Pieman said, it's not an easy format, this. It's first to 6 legs, and one bad performance and you're out. Simple as that. But Mathers showed his quality, got through to the final, which secured him 5 points. I think he picked up another point previously, so went through on 6. John Brown, son of Steve Brown, who is already a tour card holder as well. So I think might well be the first father-son combination as card holder. So
definitely the first one we've had for a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, so
I don't remember one.
No, so it could be good actually, them coming up. If they may well meet at certain tournaments, it's certainly not unthinkable. But I think it's bizarre really for all the players that went through. I think the story of Q School has to go to Danny Baggage for a couple of reasons, because he obviously entered at the prelim stage and had a stinker for the first couple of days, and then it's a case of the pressure's on, and he won the lot again on the prelim stage and managed to get through. It comes to the final stage, again, gets knocked out in the first round, didn't play particularly well, scored okay, but doubles were all over the place. Second day, played a lot better, and I think just ran into a decent player. That can happen in this sort of format. Day 3, again, I think he managed to evade, going out in the first round, but second round he fell out, so no point day. And Baggish it wasn't a case of just getting some points. He had to get to the final, and that's exactly what he did. He was excellent throughout, really impressive, and got to the final needing just one leg to ensure that he could get through, and he did that pretty much straight away. Interestingly enough, he didn't know that going into the final. He'd switched his phone off, nobody had told him, and Danny Baggish had actually thought he'd bottled it in the final. I think he succumbed to a 6-2 defeat, and I think he thought he needed 4 or 5 legs. He then said he turned around and saw everybody speak, like with a big grin on the face, and he realised that he'd secured that prestigious tour card. So big props to the PDC, who have handled the event tremendously well. Just to get this on, for the sheer amount of players, I think there was over 400 players across the European and UK stages. A magnificent event. One that I really enjoy. It's the first. Looked at it a lot last year, but this time I watched it quite intensely. With Dark Connect, following the games. You've seen some good players, some notable mentions who didn't get tour cards. Kevin Painter, somebody who I suggested that could get that. I think Kevin has actually called time on his career now and just thought, he's had a good career. He's just going to play what's it called?
The amateur circuit.
Yeah, amateur stuff and any events, like the working men's club stuff. Yeah, exhibitions. That's it. Yeah. Other names: Robert Thornton lost his tour card now. He missed out, and interestingly,
I like Robert Thornton. I'll stand up.
No, he beats himself up too much. That's his issue. But interestingly enough, as well, for Thornton, didn't secure that UK Open qualifying place as well. Other names: Mark on the final day didn't secure enough points. Kevin McDine did get his UK Open place, but again just fell short of that. But disappointing weeks for the likes of Alan Norris, who didn't play that badly at times, just ran into some good players. Fallon Sherrock, second time having a go at a tour card and was absolutely nowhere near, put in some good performances. But the one-off good performances simply aren't good enough. You've got to be consistently good throughout. That's not just saying, like you win a game averaging 100, but then your next game you turn in an average of 70. That's simply not good enough. And for one man who literally going to the toilet, probably cost him from qualifying, was Cameron Menzies, who was flying at one point and was timed out for going for a poo. And literally
that was day one, wasn't it?
It was day one. He was in the final. Yeah. He was in the final 32. Had flown through each of his games, and if he'd have, I know it's easy to say that, but had he have won that fixture in the final 32 and not been timed out, he would have qualified to the next, at least to the final day, because he missed out by a point. So yeah, something a bit different on that performance, which just shows.
That again,
but it just shows though that there's simply no excuses. You've got to be there. They run to a schedule, and if you're not, regardless of the reason, see you later.
Yeah, well, I guess that does sum up just how difficult it is to put this event on. They've got all these boards going on, and you often see it when you're following it on Darts Connect that one board will get ahead of. You'll have one board where they're still in the last 64, and then on another board there's a last 16 game going on. Then you've got players standing around waiting for their opponents to finish and what have you. So it's tough for them to organise. But I thought they just agree with what you said. I thought they did a brilliant job of organising it all.
We've touched on most of the players there then that have got their hands on a tour card, Pyman. So who would be the 2 or 3 that you're going to highlight for us that are going to make a real impact this year?
For me, 2 from Europe I'd like to focus on. I've mentioned them both already. Adam Gawlas from the Czech Republic. I think this lad has got the quality to eventually I see him in a top 32. I just think he's got age on his side, and he's got he seems to have the ability. He had really good composure in the World Cup. I was very impressed with him. All the noises are good. Looking forward to seeing what he can do. For him, it'll be a case of just consolidating and trying to, make sure that he keeps his card in these first 2 years, get a few wins under his belt, get used to the tour. It's not an instant fix. Gerwyn Price won his tour card for a Q School, and it wasn't an instant rise for him. Even with his ability, he had to work his way up kind of slowly, But yeah, Adam Gawlas, Geert de Vos, I've already said, I think he's going to have a very interesting campaign because he's got ability. It's just whether he can produce it as regularly as he needs to. And then one from the UK that we haven't mentioned, Alan Soutar. He'll be a name that many people are familiar with in the amateur darts circuit. Suits has captained Scotland for a long time. He's a real stalwart of the amateur game. So there was a good story a couple of years ago where Gary Anderson actually, knows him from the Scottish darts circuit. They've been at the top of it for years. And he went up to him and said, look, you need to come and have a go at the PDC. I will pay for you to have a go at the PDC. I'll sponsor you for, I'll pay all your entries, whatever, pay you to train and that. He said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not accepting that. He's a fireman as well. So he's a very proud man. He's had 50 caps for Scotland, captained Scotland and in the amateur events and stuff. But this year decided to rock up and have a go. And he kind of said, if I can get it this year, it might be time to sort of change my life a bit and have a proper go at darts because I've been playing for so long now. And he stormed it, really. Order of merit, he was up near the top, and that was with a day to spare. So quality performance from Alan Soutar. Looking forward to seeing what he can do this year.
Yeah, my couple to be looking out for would be the more obvious ones that we've already mentioned. But I mean, Raymond van Barneveld is the obvious headline grabber with his history in the game, and we can all have opinions, including myself, about his retirement and stuff that went on in the last couple of years of his season. Some more controversial than others. But yeah, he's gone through, like you say, Pyman, first couple of days maybe it wasn't all plain sailing for him, but he's got there in the end, Barney, and he'll obviously be a headline act. And he's going forward in some of the bigger TV tournaments now that he's guaranteed a spot at some of them. And it's going to be interesting, really, because he is going to be ranked so low in the top 64, if you like. He's going to come up against some there's going to be some good early round matches that involve Barney, against some of the top 16 or top 8. Baggish, I know we've covered, but I think that he deserved it, made it hard work for himself, and really has he's got quite a lot of support in the UK, social media, etc. He's been really active on that, so fair play to him there. And then Martin Schindler, I know I've mentioned him, but I think he could be the best player of all of those to have got a tour card this last week. I know that's an obvious thing to say. We've seen him in World Cups, etc. But I really want to see him kick on, to be fair. Any standouts for you, Oz?
Not really from what you've already said. I think, it's easy to target the big net. Baggish for sure. I think he'll thrive in this sort of environment now and it will only get better. He's got through arguably one of the toughest, qualifying stages. Q School is not easy. And you see big names each year fall at the first hurdle all the time. The fact he's got through it now, he's going to spend the bulk of his time in the UK as well. He's going to be practicing with good players. We've seen already he can do it on the big stage. So I think he's only going to get better. And he's a real, he's a real asset added to the circuit now. He's quite likeable. He's got a lot of fans on his side. But more importantly, he can throw quality darts. A couple of others that stand out for me. Jack Main romped it in terms of the order of merit. I think he finished top with 9 points. And I'm looking at players who consistently averaged well, over the period of time. And it's not just a case of, you can have a lucky run and you binked your tour card. And Jack Main was one of them. He was always up there. You don't get 9 points by accident. Shows he's throwing well. He's young. I think he's only 24. He's got time on his side. And he's clearly somebody who's going to be going for it, going for it and trying to make a career as a pro. Jake Jones is another one. I've seen a lot of talk about him, from clearly class, from, as a young player. And he's not the first young player that you see, do really well on the youth circuit, but then fall away, coming onto the main circuit. Aaron Monk is one that just shows that,
I was going to say Aaron Monk. I was just thinking Aaron Monk.
Yeah, Aaron Monk is one who again struggled at Q School, didn't throw particularly badly, just come into some basically the wrong sort of players. And, a favourable draw can help at Q School, but Aaron Monk just hasn't done it. We've seen Luke Humphreys, who's, is making that step up, and he's one that can do that. Van Gerwen, obviously, as well. I want to say Goldfinger, but I think that's just because he's won and he was a winning tip. But he's shown previously Gilding. I think he got through to the semi-final of the UK Open. It was a long time ago, that. But again,
Gilding is one of these players where he was one of these. We're saying about Stindler averaging like ridiculous averages. He used to regularly on the floor average like 100 and something, and everyone would say, "Oh, this guy's good," and then he'd come on telly and just like collapse a little bit Ian White style, other than that UK Open run.
It went way off the radar, Gilding, because he's got that unique style where he's
very unique
himself on the hockey, and he's got a pretty unique look as well. And he's fell right off the radar to people like me. I didn't know where he was, but I do now.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. And I think another one as well is Louis Williams, another good player who was excellent throughout the whole of Q School, another young lad. Was tipped up by a couple of people to get a card. So I think there's real quality that's gone through, and I think it's evident that the PDC is becoming stronger and stronger throughout. And you've seen players at the top, the likes of Darryl Gurney, who say, if I don't keep performing, I'm going to drop out, not just to the top 16, but potentially, fall down the rankings. And I think the likes of Rob Cross have got to be looking over the shoulder, because good players are coming through consistently. And if Cross doesn't book his ideas up, he won't just drop out the top 16. He could be down to the likes, in the top 30s, the way he's throwing at the moment. So I think it's evident the PDC is getting stronger and stronger. You've got some big names on the Challenge Tour now as well, which is another way, you can win a card for the tour. And it might be that some players, win it, are just better suited to the Challenge Tour and can, ever try and claim a card that way rather than going through Q School. It just suits them that way. That can happen. But there's some good players on that Challenge Tour and even better players who have earned the cards this year.
So just before we wrap up, we're going to touch on the Pieman curse for a young man from Holland. Pieman tipped him up in our previous video. And what happened to Justin Van Tergouw, Mr. Pieman?
Well, I'm just like to extend my apologies to Justin's friends and family. Obviously, as soon as I put him up as my best value selection at 13-2, he pulled out with a stomach bug. So I can only apologise. I've done this to a few people now. He's the lad that was so impressive in a BDO youth final a few years ago, and here's me saying that he seems to have finally overcome his bad luck with injuries and whatnot, and then literally get some bad luck as soon as I put him up. So hopefully be keeping an eye on Justin, and remember the name for this time next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think he'll be 13-2 next year, unfortunately for you, Pyman. I think he may be a little bit shorter. But that's all things Q School covered. And yeah, if you can drop us a like and subscribe, that would be absolutely brilliant. And thanks for tuning in. We'll speak to you soon.